Hello all sentient beings and welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, where we talk about all news, comics, and media related to the... On this episode of Transmissions Alt Mode, we are joined by Epyk as we review My Little Pony Transformers #1. We get a good look at some upcoming IDW covers for the amazing Transformers '84 Secrets and Lies, and IDW Publishing terminates Judd Myers. I wonder who's left. Today is Friday, August 14th, 2020, and this is episode 194 of Transmissions Alt Mode.
Welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, the podcast that asks if warring robots in disguise can learn that friendship is magic. I'm your host Charles, aka Big C, and I'm joined by the excellent Transmissions team. Jeremy, aka Yakko.
Hey, how's it going?
The amazing Epyk.
Hello.
And Daryl, the Cybertronian beast.
What's Optimus Prime's cutie mark? Let's talk Transformers.
The Autobot symbol, of course, Daryl.
Of course.
All right, we mentioned it in the toy show this week, but this is our 7th anniversary Transmissions podcast. Our first episode went up on August 13th, 2013. So this week, luckily, we have shows on the 12th and the 14th, but nothing on the 13th. Or maybe we'll have a special on the 13th if one of our shows that's in production goes up then. But I'm not promising anything.
Yeah, don't promise anything.
But nevertheless, this week does mark our 7th anniversary. So we are excited to continue to bring you all the Transformers content you desire. And we don't show any signs of stopping, I hope. So
yeah, I was surprised we made it a month. And look at us now.
Yep. So thanks everyone for continuing to listen.
But don't look now, but there's a girl on the show now. Don't scare her away.
We convinced Daryl to put on deodorant, so Epyk was able to join us. Thanks, Epyk, for sticking around. We're sorry for the smell, but we're taking care of it.
It's all right. It's all right. I can handle it.
All right. As always, we started the show by thanking our Donatreons, those lovely people who give us money on Patreon and PayPal. You guys are awesome, and you are a big reason why we have stuck with this show for so long and have made it to 7 years. So we really appreciate everyone who's contributing. If you'd like to become a Donatreon, just go to transmissionspodcast.com/support. And we have a big thanks to Christopher, our newest Donatreon, who just signed up last week. Thank you, Christopher, for becoming part of our family. We appreciate it. And we hope you're here to stay.
Welcome to the shit show. Never gives me time to talk.
You're not fast enough.
You're right. You're right.
Slow and smelly.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Now it's going to
She's
stick.
got you pegged, Daryl.
Yep.
Yeah, so another way to help out the show would be to hit us up on our TeePublic store, which is at transmissionspodcast.com/shop. If you buy stuff from our link there, anything from TeePublic that will help out the show and give us a little bit of a kickback. You can also help out our friend K-Girl. She did a lot of art and designs for our t-shirt designs and other things. Her store is at teepublic.com/user/superstark. So you can support her too and support all the stuff we've got over there on TeePublic. We've also got coming early next week. So this Monday coming up, we've got the next episode of our Transformers RPG podcast, Empire of Rust, episode 30. This is Second Chance Theater. So you can check that out next week. It should be dropping on Monday. And you'll listen as Mike and his crew continue their adventures in the Transformers universe through a live play RPG podcast. And this weekend, starting today, actually, we've got TF Nation has got the big broadcast of 2020 going on. This is the replacement for the sadly canceled TF Nation Transformers convention. And Jeremy, you did an interview just this week to tell everyone about what you can expect in this big broadcast.
Yeah, I got to sit down with David Wallace. I sit down virtually over Skype.
Is that the guy from 60 Minutes?
That's
No.
Mike Wallace, Daryl.
Yeah.
Is that his dad?
No.
This is David Wallace, who is from TF Nation. And we talked all about what goes into, transitioning from an in-person show to coming up with something to do on, online, and, the work that they went into doing this, and how they were able to get guests that they would not normally be able to get. It was a really fun discussion. So hope you check it out and then watch the big broadcast.
Awesome. All right, let's start off the show and talk about some comics news. So, first up, we've got lots of cover images coming out. We've got the next couple of issues of Transformers 84 Secrets and Lies. We've got Casey Collar's cover for issue 2, which features a very G1 Grimlock and the Dinobots. Very cool image there. And then we've got covers for issue 3, which also has one by Casey Collar and another one by Nick Roche. And this features some of the other characters showing up in the G1 Marvel Comics. We've got Straxus, Fortress Maximus, Thunderwing, Scorponok. These were all characters that were later additions to the Marvel Comics run, but this 84 is supposed to be a prequel, so I think we'll see how all these characters, maybe some never before seen moments in these characters' histories. And I think this whole series, I think, officially counts as a retcon. So, but it is Simon Furman. So Simon Furman is one of the two major architects of the Marvel Transformers G1 comics. So I think if anyone is allowed to put some retcons in and more fully flesh out the history of the Marvel G1 comics, it's Simon Furman. So
If we don't get Scrounge's backstory, or at least a reference to Scrounge, the whole series just sucks. I'm just calling it right now.
So Scrounge or GTFO, huh?
Right. He transforms into a wheel. Come on.
All right, Simon. I hope for your sake you put Scrounge in there somewhere. All right. Another cover we've got. This is from Transformers Galaxies issue 9. So this will be out in another month or so. We just had issue 8 come out this week. And this is art by Sarah Peter Durocher. So this is cover B. And this is Gage, the main character of this Transformers Galaxies story arc. And I think we'll be reviewing Transformers Galaxies issue 8 next week. That's already out this week, but we've got a little backlog. But that story is shaping up to be pretty interesting. And of course, Sarah Peter Durocher does great art, so this cover looks very cool. The coloring is very different from her normal style, so I really like it.
Wasn't some of her first covers some of the graffiti during Revolutions?
Yeah, that was but that was the whole cover was graffiti art. Here it's just
right,
a couple of symbols there, but yeah, she did a whole series of graffiti art covers for the for the relaunch in 2016 of all the series. Yeah. It was Optimus Prime, Lost Light, G.I. Joe, right, Revolutions, and Mask. But yeah, cool cover art from Sarah Peter Durocher. And we've also got some art from War for Cybertron. This is the box art from the Transformers War for Cybertron Earthrise boxes, and we've got prints that you can buy. And this art looks really cool. So if you really like it, if you're really into it, you can get these prints and hang them on your wall. But the Earthrise packaging art, it features the Quintessons, the Ark. You've got Optimus Prime and all the some of the Autobot characters there. You've got Unicron way in the distance there. So, question mark, is Unicron going to figure into Earthrise? So very interesting box art there. And then you've got some additional art. There's one picture of the Autobots in a swamp somewhere, and it's another little like kind of battle pose. Then you've got Decepticons there, like a full Decepticon. Like it looks like they're on the bridge of a ship. Maybe this is when they launched the Nemesis to chase after the Ark. You've got Megatron, Soundwave, Ravage. Yeah, this is all these art prints are really cool. And and then Jeremy's found a link here where we've got lots more.
They have lots of shirts, mugs, stuff like that, in addition to those prints.
Yeah. And then we've got the next. John Barber, who's the editor-in-chief of IDW Comics, he's got a little regular series. He started. This is the insert that goes into all the comics. It's called Barber's Shop, but now he's got a YouTube video component of that. So he did one on Transformers versus Terminator a couple of months ago, and now he's doing one on My Little Pony Transformers #1. So you can check out that video, and he'll give you a little overview of this comic crossover. I haven't watched this, actually. Has anybody watched this?
I have not.
Not yet.
Nope.
So watch it and let us know what you think. But yeah, I mean, John Barber's a friend of the show, and we're doing some cool stuff with him, with looking back at some of the other Transformers comics he's written in the past. Check that out. And last bit of news, I'm going to hand this over to Jeremy because we've got further developments in the ongoing saga of Judd Myers, the newly hired publisher of IDW Publishing. And he was put on, we talked about last week how he's put on administrative leave. And I'm sure that leave will, wrap up pretty quickly and he'll be right back to work. Right, Jeremy? Everything's going to be fine.
You would be wrong. The timeline of this, because Daryl insisted that I look up the exact timeline. He joined IDW in August 2019. He was announced as the new publisher July 22nd, 2020. Put on administrative leave 5 days later, July 27th. And he has been fired as of, it was announced August 7th.
Wow.
We kind of went into it last week, some of the reason it's all rumors, so I don't want to really get into it, but it seems like there's something in his background dealing with when he was working or when he was owning a comic shop or working with some comic shops that was kind of shady, and the speculation is IDW found out about it or something, and that's the primary cause. But like I said, no one's really talking, so this is just things that people have dug up. But it's not a good look for IDW. Just, do your due diligence when you're hiring someone for any position, but especially prominent positions like publisher.
Yeah, it seems kind of silly that if it is a background type thing that it just now is an issue.
Right. So it just, yeah. No news about who's going to take over the publisher role at this point. Can't remember. They announced President Jerry Bennington is assuming his responsibilities as interim publisher right now. So I guess the final part of this saga will be when they announce the new publisher. I don't know. I think at this point they need to get someone completely new. It seems like they're doing a lot of internal hiring, all the recent moves that they made, the 3 promotions were all internal. Mm-hmm. And I think they'd probably be good to go outside and maybe hire a search firm that can do the due diligence that they aren't able to do.
Well, I'm going to submit my resume.
Okay.
I got a decent shot as anybody, right?
Sure.
We'll be your references.
I'm sure you wouldn't mind being relocated to San Diego.
I would right now. I
would. You'd probably have some time.
You don't want to move to the hot spot of the pandemic. It's pretty hot down there. Things are happening.
You'd really get to get some use out of your mask.
Hey, I mean, that's a good point. I got ideas, right? I'm sure I could figure out this comic book industry thing. I've been a collector for a long time. I'm sure that's what they want to hear when you apply.
You've read a comic or two.
I collect a lot of comic books. I'm sure I know how to do it.
I got thoughts.
Got thoughts how to run this thing. You need to print them on paper.
You'd probably
convince him to
see
go
if
digital.
Charles would come on and be like in charge of continuity.
But this is ridiculous, though. This whole charade is ridiculous, and we've been watching IDW through, from the sidelines for years because of the Transformers books. But watching them fall apart like this has just been terrible. And the Chris Ryle, his tenure as what was he, CEO, publisher? Didn't he have both of those?
He was the previous publisher and president, I believe.
Right. Mm-hmm. So he was only there for like a year and a half, maybe less. This is it's not a good look.
Don't forget, he left and then came back to do that.
That's right.
He
left as an editor, right? And came back as the publisher. So all this trouble up at the top of IDW is just terrible. It cannot be boding well for any of their investors, except for the investor who's also on the board of IDW, who just keeps reinvesting in his own company. This person will soon go bankrupt. Oh well. We'll keep watching, and a lot of people are saying IDW is going to be done for in less than 18 months, so we hope not.
We've said stuff
but
like that. Yeah.
It's we know a lot of people who work there. The comic book industry moves.
Is part of all the problems just the pandemic as well, and like what happened with all that?
There's been a lot of stuff happening prior to the pandemic, though.
Oh, okay.
Jeremy, you'd know it off your top of your head a little bit better than I would. I mean, how long ago was it that all of that stuff happened with Ryle in the beginning, and then when Tom B. Long left just prior to that, and because they had this big the executives all leave, and
it was like last year, I think, was a lot of that.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of this stuff going on for quite some time.
And it's also money issues with them. Like, they've been putting so much money into the TV side of things with like
Winona
Earp, and they have a Lock and Key show, and I think something else. Lock and Key is the only thing that's made them money on the TV side, and so the company is in debt, not making money. That's never a good sign.
Yeah.
And who's left if IDW goes out? Would it just be individuals or the independent?
Well, there's still quite a few companies out there. I mean, other than DC and Marvel, there's still Image and Boom and
Dark Horse still has a few properties.
Dark
Marvel
Horse has got a few. Why can't I think of the other one?
Valiant,
Dynamite, and Oni.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Oni.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of I'd say C and D level comic book comp.
Yeah, IDW is it's like Marvel, DC, then Image, and then probably IDW and Dark Horse are about the same level.
Yeah, I'd say IDW is probably fourth, with Dark Horse in a close fifth. Yeah. So I mean, they're right up there. When you refer to comic book companies, you always refer to the big two, and there's a reason. Like it's going to take a lot to unseat the big two.
Gotcha.
DC's not doing themselves a lot of favors right now. They're trying to unseat,
but neither is Marvel.
Unseat themselves. It's fun kind of watching the comic book industry from the business point.
Yeah, I think good decisions aren't being made in the whole industry.
I think in general, just the whole pre-order system where books have to sell 3 months before they come out for that basically makes it impossible for any new book to get any kind of traction unless it has a big name attached to it, and that seems kind of like that really hurts discovery of letting people discover new stuff and let audiences build. I mean, it's the same thing. We see this with other entertainment industries where the cycle has just become so shortened that if you're not if you don't have big numbers right out of the gate, then you're basically cut off at the knees, and you're not allowed to build an audience ever.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the music industry, right? Music industry is exactly like that right now.
But then you do have books like the My Little Pony book we're about to talk about that before even issue 1 came out, they were like, we're going to a second printing of this one.
Yep.
True.
So pre-orders, we're strong enough there.
But I mean, that's the thing. It had a big name. Like My Little Pony is it's a popular franchise and people are aware of it. So all the people who are buying My Little Pony comics made sure to pre-order this crossover. Anyway, speaking of crossovers, I think that's a good segue to go right into our comic review.
Right now, as I mentioned, we're talking about My Little Pony Transformers #1. In this, there are 2 stories, so I'll do the credits before I go into each story. We have 4 covers. Cover A has Optimus and some ponies looking on as the matrix of leadership glows bright, and this is by Tony Fleeks. Retailer Incentive A has RC and Rarity taking fire in battle, and this is by Jack Lawrence. Retailer Incentive B has Optimus, Windblade, RC, and Gage enjoying some time on Equestria, and this is by Bethany McGuire Smith. And the retailer exclusive that was the San Diego Comic-Con at-home exclusive has Optimus and Twilight Sparkle taking some time stargazing, and this is by Evan Stanley. So, Epyk, let's start with you. Which one of these 4 do you really like?
I've been thinking about this. None of them, weird as it is, didn't really pop out at me. I mean, I like the RIA, I guess, RC, and I don't remember her name, Pony's name. But then I guess, too, I do feel drawn to the Optimus in Twilight one, because just something about the art style, I think, captures me, like the clean lines of it and everything. But, yeah, I guess between those 2 really are ones I like. Okay.
Daryl, let's go to you next. Which one do you like?
Well, I do really like the convention exclusive one, since that's the one that you got for me. But I probably would go with the RIA, like Epyk said there, because it's Jack Lawrence. He's got experience drawing Transformers and does it very well. He's got experience drawing the My Little Pony stuff and has drawn it quite well. And the cover probably just looks, I think, the best out of all of them.
Cool. All right, Charles, how about you?
I gotta agree there. I think the Jack Lawrence cover with RC and Rarity is the best. And yeah, Jack Lawrence having actual Transformers experience, it shows clearly his style versus Tony Fleeks in particular. I think the Jack Lawrence cover is really the best one out of these. I do Bethany McGuire Smith. I think she did a good job of putting the recent Transformers character designs from the 2019-2020 series in her cover. But it just seems really out. I mean, it's all the regular Transformers designs are already out of place with the ponies, so these ones are even like doubly out of place. So, but I do think her art is still pretty good with that. I didn't like those designs, putting those designs in with the ponies.
Yeah, so I'll have to agree. The RIA cover from Jack Lawrence was my favorite as well. I just think it's so dynamic, and I don't always like it when they have a white outline around the drawings, but I think in this one it really works and kind of it sets them off of the background, especially with the drop shadow. It's kind of like it would be like one of those not really a toy, but like one of the art things that like a kid would have, where they would have a background and they would put on the little like static clings.
Yeah, like those like kind of rubber things or something that...
Yeah. That's kind of what I get from it. I think it's kind of fun. All right, let's get into the stories here. Story number 1 is called Transformation is Magic. This is written by James Asmus, art by Tony Fleeks, colors by Tony Fleeks, color flats by Lauren Perry, letters by Jake M. Wood. Editor on both stories is Megan Brown, consulting editor David Mariette. He's from the Transformers side of things. And then group editor is Bobby Carnell. So this one, it's another day in Equestria when Queen Chrysalis tries to take over the planet again, this time using her magic to summon changelings from other worlds to assist her. On Cybertron, the Autobots and Decepticons are locked in battle when the Decepticon space bridge begins malfunctioning. Suddenly, all the Cybertronians, except Grimlock, who was late arriving to the battle, were transported away. Princess Twilight Sparkle and her guards are confronting Chrysalis when the space bridge opens and a number of colored beams come out of it. Inside the beams are the various Cybertronians, both Autobot and Decepticon. Realizing that these beings are alive, Twilight Sparkle notices that two are falling out of control and heads over to them, while Chrysalis introduces herself to Megatron. Falling to the ground, Prime contacts Windblade, hoping for a rescue, but she's just encountered some of the locals. Optimus then tells Bumblebee to take his hand and he'll try to take the brunt of the landing to save Bee. Seeing this act of friendship, Twilight Sparkle uses her magic to catch them and set them down safely on a cliff. Introductions are made and friendship is also made between both the Autobots and Twilight Sparkle, as well as Megatron and Queen Chrysalis, as she rides the Decepticon leader's tank mode. I'll go ahead and do the second story here, and then we can just talk about both of them. The second story is called Shine Like a Diamond. This is written by Ian Flynn, art by Jack Lawrence, colors by Luis Antonio Delgado, letters by Neil Epyk. I'm sorry that butchered that. In Manhattan, Starscream has begun his attempt at conquest by forcing Rarity to fashion a cape and crown for him. Before they finish, RC drops in and kicks the crown off his head. RC makes quick work of Starscream and he makes a hasty retreat, swearing he will be back. After he's gone, RC tries to assess the damage and help with the cleanup. Introducing herself to Rarity, they both explain a little bit about themselves and how they'll do anything for their friends. Shortly afterwards, Starscream returns, but this time with Skywarp and Thundercracker assisting him. RC begins shooting at the jets, but when Rarity creates an energy shield to protect her. RC hits Thundercracker, then Rarity has her try to draw Skywarp and Starscream closer together. Using her magic, Rarity sends the former cape towards them, and they get caught in it. Skywarp has had enough of this mess, and he warps away, leaving Starscream to crash in the distance. These are the two stories. Very light stories, not too much deep, but it's a crossover. One thing I was confused about, I don't know if these two stories are in continuity with each other or not, because we do see Starscream in the first story kind of in the background and stuff. I'm assuming that they are kind of together. I don't know. I wasn't expecting a lot because I have very little exposure to My Little Pony. But I thought these were fun. My kid was watching, looking over as I was flipping through it, and he seemed interested in the story. So I'll probably, read it to him and kind of get the 6-year-old take. But we've had much worse Transformers stories, and I thought this was, for what it was trying to be, I think it accomplished it. It's obviously, it's not really targeted at me, but I can appreciate it for what it is. Charles, what do you think? I know you're a huge pony fan.
Yeah, I mean, I am I am not a huge pony fan, so but I mean it's fine. It was cute. I liked the first page that was basically kind of a meta commentary on crazy crossovers. And the one pony reading about the nonsense crossover story, and what continuity does it happen, and I just thought it was fun. It's basically telling the audience to, hey, lighten up.
Yeah, self-awareness.
So that was good. I think the stories were fine. Yeah, and I do think they are in continuity. I think it looks like my take was that at the end of the first story, the Autobots and Decepticons are basically scattered all over Equestria, so they are all basically having to do their own thing, and Megatron is teamed up with the bad pony, I guess, and then Starscream, he just got dumped in another city and was like, well, I'll just start my conquest here. So that's what the second story was. The one thing I will say though is that I am not a fan of the Transformer art from Tony Fleecs in the first story. I think the Transformers just didn't look well done at all. Yeah. I mean, the ponies looked fine, but the Transformers were just, the faces in particular, I didn't really like at all. And it was just not not my thing at all. So Jack Lawrence did a great job on the second story. I think he's already done Transformers art before, so he perfectly captured the G1 aesthetic with Starscream and RC in that story. And the ponies were all fine. I mean, I'm not the biggest judge of the pony art. I guess they're all on model. They looked fine. But yeah, I think that was my biggest complaint with the art in the first story. And the Transformers just didn't look good.
Epyk, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so I kind of had the same thoughts as Charles. I did get, okay, first of all, My Little Pony and Transformers, my first thought is, who is this for? Because it seems like, I know my nieces are super into My Little Ponies, but I also know that my nieces don't care about Transformers. And then you've got, like, also they're kids who aren't into comics. So then you've got, like, the adults, so it's just, I was curious, like, I don't know if there's a big crossover between the two, but then I did have to have a laugh at the first page where it's just acknowledging the self-awareness, and I was like, okay, well, at least we're aware of how absurd this kind of seems. But yeah, I didn't realize when I first read this until you explained that these are kind of two separate stories, because I had the same feelings about the artwork as well, where I'm like looking at the faces of like Optimus and Megatron and stuff, and even Starscream and some of these, and I'm like, I love the colors of everything and all that stuff, but I'm like, I just don't like how they look. There's just something off about them. So that makes sense, because then yes, the RC story, I felt like I didn't notice that at all. So, but overall, I mean, it was cute. They really, I have sat down with my nieces and watched some My Little Pony a while back, and they definitely nailed the whole any friendship chat and like the feeling you'd get from like the My Little Pony line and stuff. But it just, at the end of the day, it's just not really for me. It was fun and stuff, but I don't know. It's such a weird crossover. I don't know what to make of it, but it was cute, whatever. And yeah, I did really like the artwork of the second story more than the first.
Daryl, since you are the recent owner of a pony, what did you think?
First, I was super disappointed that there wasn't a My Little Pony Prime in this, and for the product tie-in. I also got a big chuckle out of the first page. Specifically for me, it was the second panel where the pony asks the guy if he could buy a new one because the comic he was reading got rained on.
Yes.
Because it was no longer mint. I thought that was very clever and fun.
It also has like a real spinner rack where it says like, "Hey Kids Comics."
Yep. I know that my daughter has some My Little Pony comics from when she was a few years younger, and the ponies look very well drawn, but in both stories. I agree with Charles that the Tony Fleecs art for the Transformers was not the best, but this is the kind of thing we run into every single time that they do a crossover, and the other artist of the crossover does Transformers. They kind of just, it's not right. It's not what we're used to. So, I'm sure that they tried their best, and it just doesn't look right to us.
Yeah, I do think it does tie in with like the cuteness of the ponies. Like, it would be off if the Transformers were like too transformery. Yeah. I don't know what that'd be, but like, what I'm talking about, where it's like you got kind of this. It's almost like a cartoony take on Transformers.
It's very, very cartoony, yeah.
But yeah,
it's so I don't, I can get through it. These crossovers work best when they don't take themselves seriously, and that's exactly what that first page was all about. We know that this is just going to be a goofy crossover, and it's not going to mean anything, and who cares? We're just going to have some fun, and that's all I was reading it for. I wasn't reading it for the art. I wasn't reading it for a really compelling story. I'm reading it because it's goofy, and it's something that we were gonna do for the show. If I think I said it before, if we weren't doing this show, this is something I probably wouldn't have picked up, and that's fine. It's not everything has to be for you because it says Transformers on it. The story itself was fun, particularly the first story. I like it how it does seem that they're going to do two concurrent stories that are going to follow follow along, or maybe there's going to be one story and then there's the second story is going to be like little tiny mini one-shots. Either way, I like it. The second story with Jack Lawrence's art, obviously he knows what he's doing with regards to the Transformers stuff, so I was much more visually happy reading his story. I liked a lot of the nods that the Starscreaminess that they gave Starscream in the book. It was quite well done.
It's like the first thing he does. Okay, I need a crown and a cape.
Yep. And he looks really good in this. So, the battle is great. The discussion between RC and Rarity is quite nice. This is not the previous incarnations of RC. This is a very, very season 3 of G1 RC. Mm-hmm. She's very lovey-dovey, very cute, very, a very wholesome character here. She is not an assassin. As much as she comes in and kicks Starscream in the head, she turns into a very, very, a very loving character after that. When the two of them are together and they can just talk, you see RC get very, and cute. And, when they start talking to each other about feelings and all that bullshit. Yeah, but it's a very good take on the character, and not every version of RC needs to be the same version. So I liked it. I thought it was good. As I said, Jack Lawrence's art is just probably my preferred art for this. It works. He's quite capable of pulling off the cartoon aspect and making it believable. It doesn't look like it's too forced. It definitely looks like it's pulled from the TV screen. So when you're doing something like this in a crossover, you can really imagine these two cartoons coming together with his art, and that's something that I think really works.
And I will say it looks like the My Little Pony and the Transformer characters in his story do fit a lot better together than the first one, where the ponies looked fine, but the Transformers were way off.
Yeah. Another artist, I mean, obviously we know him because he's, he puts a lot of stuff on Instagram and Twitter, but Casey Collar could probably pull this off as well. The story's not too big. He's drawn Transformers and ponies as well, and is quite capable of doing both. But for this particular issue, I thought it was great. I thought it worked out well. It's goofy. It's, it doesn't take itself seriously, and it's exactly what these crossovers are supposed to be.
I wanted to say one more thing, because I did like some of the details. Like in the first page, you have Equestria written in the Transformers font, and then on the next page you have Cybertron written in the My Little Pony font. I thought that was that was cute. One thing I will say, with when they have Shockwave, when he's like interacting with his control panel, his little gun hand is like bent like a little finger. So I thought that was cute.
I really love the imagery in that first story, the last panel of Chrysalis on Megatron. I thought if that ever got made with her changelings behind her, that could end up being a cute little poster for the crossover. Thought that was a cool image.
Cool. Well, so we'll be following this. I think next week we have, you said Galaxies number 8, and that's our review this week.
All right, and we will move on to Transformers media news.
All right, in media news this week, we got a new video game, a Transformers video game coming. World of Warships is a video game that is joining up with Hasbro's Transformers. There's a trailer for this thing out, and essentially there's a Transformer on each one of these warships. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Take a look and see. It's just bonkers. I don't understand what we're doing with this partnership. I guess we're just putting Transformers on battleships and then just shooting at each other. It's goofy. If you're into this kind of thing.
And they left out the actual Transformers ships, Broadside and Tidal Wave. Those are the only Transformers ships we have, and they're not in this.
What the hell? I don't understand.
And why not just have them scan ships and then transform into ships instead of, because it looks like they're just standing on their ship.
Too much to do.
I'm asking too much.
You can't have them scan stuff. They just got to stand there. It's
Okay.
this is
Looks like they turned into their vehicle mode on the ship.
Yeah, they can do that and just drive back and forth along the deck, I guess. But
I have 2 comments on this.
please,
One with Hasbro trying to build up the G.I. Joe brand again, this would have been a better crossover with G.I. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, this would be even better. They had approached us about a sponsorship, and then we would have all talked about it glowingly.
I mean, doesn't G.I. Joe have a guy named Shipwreck? It fits.
Well, although Transformers has a guy named Tidal Wave,
It's true.
and they aren't using him.
They aren't.
They're using Rumble.
Frenzy.
It says Rumble.
He's
got the power.
This is the most ridiculous thing. So
It's so dumb.
I'm not playing this. I think this is dumb, but if you're going to play this, let us know how it looks and if there is an actual point or story to it, or if you're just blowing up ships with figures on them. It just looks dumb. Anyway, next up, we're going to talk about a little bit of War for Cybertron stuff. We've got some commentaries with Alexander Bornstein, who Jeremy interviewed, and
he said he was going to do this in our interview.
well, there you go. And Tracy Turnbull. So these are some commentaries for the music that is in the Siege show. So there's 2 commentaries here, and you can take a look at those if you're into a little bit more information about the music. So take a look at those. Last thing there is about the War for Cybertron series is a couple things. Peter Cullen and Gary Chalk chimed in. Peter Cullen's comment was from almost a year ago, I think, but it only got dug up because Gary Chalk had posted on Facebook saying that he had a critique about the voice acting on the Netflix series, and then the Peter Cullen one kind of got dug up and kind of got added to it. So their opinions were kind of added together, and people are talking about how they don't like voice acting on the Netflix series. I want to have a little bit of a discussion about this because obviously the Netflix series business practices are being called into question for using non-union actors, not using Peter Cullen and Frank Welker for Optimus and Megatron, and essentially, going outside the union houses for voice actors and going a cheaper route. Peter Cullen's comments were, something along the lines of there's an unwritten rule. As long as the guy is alive, you hire him to do the voice of his character.
Which explains the original Robots in the Sky series, or Armada, or Energon, or Cybertron.
Well, those could be taken as different characters, right? They're different.
At least go to the person first.
Right. Gary Chalks was more along the lines of, he was critiquing the voice work on the show. He was not happy with the pace and the delivery. He thought it looked good, but he didn't like the voices. He thought they were kind of low energy. So let's have a bit of a discussion about this because I'm of 2 minds of this. One, I would have loved to have heard Peter Cullen and Frank Welker do the voices. I would have loved to have heard all the original voices come back and do their characters again. That's difficult to do, but it's doable. They're all still alive. Most of them are anyway, but yeah. So the problem arises in Frank Welker and Peter Cullen charge a lot of money. They aren't cheap to hire anymore. Frank Welker is a legend. Peter Cullen is also a legend. The rest of them are they're all in their own right legends. They probably could have spent their entire budget on voice actors, and we would have had stick people or something like that as far as the animation goes. Where does the balance go? What do you value more? Is it CGI? Do you want a CGI show? Would you have gone for 2D if it meant getting better voice acting? You may still not have gotten Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, even if you dumbed it down to 2D animation. Where is the balance for you? I'm going to start with Jeremy on this.
As much as I love Frank Welker and Peter Cullen, I really think, especially with them going for a pre-G1 thing, you want younger voices. The last few iterations of him doing Optimus Prime have been basically a very worn down Optimus Prime. So I don't know if I want that anymore. I think they both kind of hit their peak in the modern day with Transformers Prime. But my main issues with the acting, the voice acting and stuff in Siege is the direction. It just seems like the direction was off. And then it also seems like Hound and Ironhide should swap voice actors. But I understand their concerns with using non-union actors, and that's just a choice they made. I don't really understand the intricacies of that, but I thought the voices they got were fine. You know, on the whole, they're nitpicks here and there. I think Gary Chalk's comments are more technical and not really bashing the actors themselves. And I think that has more value to me, where he's just basically saying everyone's trying to kind of have the same pace and delivery. And that goes back, in my opinion, to the voice direction. You know, you saw some that were really good, like Wheeljack was really good. He was not trying to, you know, do that same thing everyone else was doing. He was Wheeljack. I thought Bumblebee was pretty decent. You know, Megatron and Starscream were excellent. So it's just, I don't know. I'm hoping the other two parts of this get a little bit different voice direction and kind of everyone starts to sound more unique as we go on.
Charles, where do you kind of fit in on this this scale? Do you want the original voice actors back? Is that something that that kind of stuck with you when watching it, or do you feel the pain of, you know, the union versus non-union, or are you happy to kind of let some new blood in?
So I think I fall probably close to where Jeremy is. I mean, I think my main concern is with the union stuff, just because I think that's kind of Netflix or whoever, like the production, whoever's in charge of the, you know, the people on the money side trying to get around what, you know, I think the unions are there to protect the voice actors and protect, you know, their you know, their rights and performance and things like that. And I think all these shows should continue with, you know, using union actors, but I don't think we should be setting it up as, like, setting the voice actors against each other. I think this is more on we should direct our you know, our concerns at the management people who are not you know, who are setting up this kind of false you know, false dichotomy and battle between these sets of voice actors. So I mean, my ideal thing would be to have new voice actors, but have them all be union voice actors. But I mean, I would say if you could get the originals to do their to reprise their roles, that would be great. But I'm also happy to see new people have new takes on the characters too. Like I would, if you're going to get different actors, or, you know, to do the characters, have them do a different take on the character. Like, this is why I really enjoyed Jason Marnocha doing Megatron, like on this and in the Prime Wars trilogy. He took Megatron and had a different spin on Megatron. It's not trying to approximate Frank Welker's performance. And I think with Optimus Prime, it would have been better if they had tried to move Optimus Prime a little bit further away from what Peter Cullen originally did. Like, this is why Gary Chalk's Optimus Prime and Optimus Primal worked in the previous shows, is he didn't try to do an impression of Peter Cullen. He did just a different, you know, his own take on that character. And this is the same with David Kay in Transformers Animated, who did a version of Optimus Prime there. And we also had a different version of Megatron. Was it Corey Burton who did Megatron in Transformers Animated?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think, I mean, I'm not a voice actor. I'm not in that club, so I don't really have the right to tell legends what they should think or anything like that. But I think the idea that, you know, for Transformers, at least, the characters, each iteration of Transformers is essentially a new character. So I don't really think, like, these characters should be locked in to one person forever. And right. I think it's okay to get other people to do different characters, but have them do a different delivery, a different take on that character, and use union people. You know, keep the unions involved.
Yeah, one more thing that I wanted to bring up real quick is I think this series did do itself a disservice trying to tie itself so closely to the G1 animated series. Because it's clearly not going to end up there. It's its own thing. So probably they shouldn't have gone that route in promoting the show.
I mean, but I think that's almost their... for a lot of people, Transformers is something that's in their distant memory, and they don't really, for them, for people who grew up with Transformers, it's been gone for 35 years, and this is their first, their first, other than the live action movies, which are completely different takes on it, but this is, I think I understand them trying to market this as a return to G1. Because a lot of people have not been paying attention to Transformers for a long time. But yeah, it cuts both ways, basically. The other thing with the voice performances and delivery, I think I'll agree with what Gary Chalk said. I do think they could benefit from better voice direction and having characters be more distinct than they were. A lot of the deliveries did seem very similar, but yeah, I do think there was a lot of good in there. I'm not totally down on most of the voice acting, but I think things could have been done to improve the delivery there.
Epyk, we didn't get your thoughts on the series at all yet, so maybe chime in and let us know what you thought on the show itself, and then maybe touch on the voice acting as well.
Yeah, well, since we're talking about the voice acting, I've got a handful of points around that, and obviously coming from someone who knows nothing really about the industry at all, whatever, but I didn't know that I don't know if Peter Cullen and them were just never offered the chance. I thought maybe they were and turned it down, or whatever and stuff, so it kind of, I think, sucky if they didn't even have a chance to say no. But then I get that they're expensive and stuff, but when I was talking to people about this, it's kind of at what point, because I listened to Peter Cullen's chat on there, or his video, his little talk he gave, and I kind of feel he does it for the fans, and it's his character, all this stuff. But then I kind of feel at what point, if it's so important to you, do you not just I don't know, negotiate a price or not be so expensive or stuff like that? And that could be the whole union thing or whatever, But I don't have a problem with new voices for characters. It makes sense because at some point the main voices aren't going to be around. Everyone gets old and dies, so it's going to happen at some point. So I'm not all against new voices. It's always nice if they can try to be similar, or if they're trying to go for a young Optimus and all that stuff. But I don't know, maybe think about because it sounded like he was pretty hurt about it and stuff and wasn't happy with the performance, and it's kind of well, maybe you train someone if you really want it to carry on. And I know it's an emotional connection because it's his modeled after his brother and stuff, so it's probably a little bit harder to take. But there's just some thoughts around that of I don't know, why does it have I don't know why you gotta be so expensive, I guess. But I don't know anything about the work that goes into it or how hard it is and all that stuff, but at some point you do have to bring in new blood, and I don't have any problem with that. And so I feel when people talk about this, they're when people say I hate the voice acting, and people be oh, it was fine, I think we're talking past each other, because the voices themselves, the choice of the voice they picked, for the most part, were fine. There's a few characters that fell off, Ironhide, when he spoke, is whoa, that is not the gruff southern type whatever voice I was expecting, and it just was really off-putting completely. So otherwise, the voices, I thought the Optimus guy's voice was close. I really enjoyed the Megatron's voice. That was fine. It was the acting portion for me that completely took me out of the show. And it felt it almost kind of started to get worse and worse as it went on, whereas just the pregnated pauses and just everyone, it's kind of they all were trying to do a Optimus Prime soliloquy mode where he gives some heartfelt speech, but for every normal day sentences that don't need these extreme pauses and this, it just was really distracting. That's what it ended up being. It was distracting. If it could have just talked normal, I feel it wouldn't have removed me so much from the show and stuff. So the voice acting itself was, like I said, that was a big thing that put me off. And then overall, like, this show I was super excited for. I could not wait for the show to come out. I loved the trailer. I loved everything. I know there are some people who didn't like the idea of the dark direction of it and stuff, but that's what excited me the most. I was super excited for like a raw, nitty gritty Transformer show. And then what I got was, once you put the voice acting aside, I felt like I had no plot to go by. Like, at first I thought they were maybe going with kind of like the comic book story of, like, you know, the mines and all that and whatever. But in the end, I still don't feel like I understand what's going on. Like, they didn't really ever show what kind of, like, give any sense of maybe what had happened before. And anytime it felt like we're getting ready to get an explanation, I can't remember the scene. There was a scene with, like, Optimus and them inside of Ratchet's place. And we thought, when Ratchet was, like, giving Optimus kind of a hard time, I thought there was going to be a moment where we're finally going to hear from Optimus' side, like, here's what's going on and what Megatron has planned and why you need to, like, trust me on this and stuff. And I thought we were going to get, like, kind of a quick little overview, and instead it just didn't happen, and then it just moved on. And the whole time I just feel like, well, so far what we're showing is we've got Optimus, who seems out of character, where everyone is almost just kind of disrespectful to him, just always doubting and questioning him right off the bat. And that seemed odd because I think what they're trying to go for was maybe like a naive young Optimus, and he's like learning and like making his decisions. But I just think if that's what we were trying to do, it didn't come off that way. Instead, it came off as like Optimus is kind of dumb and everyone's like questioning him no matter what. And at some point, I remember just being like, why is anyone just sticking with Optimus? Because everyone seems to be questioning him. Everyone like disagrees with his decisions, and even I do. There was like times where I was like, yeah, Alita, you're being a little mouthy and stuff, but heck yeah, you are right. You should not do this. This is definitely a trap, you know? And so, I don't know, that seemed out of character, but then that's why I think maybe they're trying to go for a naive Optimus. If it's supposed to be like a young Optimus is what it sounded like when I was reading like reviews or stuff about it. And if that's the case, I just think it could have been portrayed better. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on like if that's what they're going for with the Optimus character himself and everything, but yeah, that alone to me was like kind of weird. And I in the end just kind of felt like so far they're making it sound like, since they didn't give us any backstory, that the Autobots were kind of like the upper class crappy or people that were like holding the Decepticons down, but now the Decepticons want to be on equal footing and the Autobots are like mad about it. So, obviously Megatron's trying to like be a dictator, but they never portrayed that fully, I felt like. And they also showed, you know, Megatron had like these kind of moral conflictions and stuff when he's like torturing Ultra Magnus, and you could really see that he like, it kind of bothered him, you know, and they were almost making you feel like empathetic towards Megatron. And I don't know, it was just very confusing. I just ended up feeling confused about who I'm supposed to be rooting for. So, I don't know. It just kind of felt a little bit like the plot wasn't thought out fully to give me actual, like, understanding of why we should be rooting for the Autobots and not the Decepticons.
The impression I got, I mean, you're right that they didn't really go into the original causes of the war and, like, any of the backstory of like the falling out they actually had.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I took away from it, like just from some of the dialogue, is that there was a previous revolution, and at that time Megatron, Optimus, and Ultra Magnus were all united in overthrowing the previous tyrannical government. Yeah. And at some point, like they and Alpha Trion was the mentor for all of them. And then at some point, maybe Megatron just decided, okay, we've won this revolution, but we're not going far enough in bringing, you know, equality to all the other, like he was an underclass bot and he wanted all the underclass people to be, to get all have more power. And I guess maybe at some point there was some fight between them there where like he thought they didn't go far enough and he was going to take it further. And in the course of that, at some point he kills Alpha Trion. And I think that's what basically broke the Autobots and Decepticons. And then, but the Decepticons at this point now are basically they've almost won. So Optimus Prime, he didn't come off to me as like young and naive. He just came off to me as desperate because his back is against the wall. The Autobots are really losing at this point, and he doesn't really have any options. Like his options are surrender, keep fighting, and be totally destroyed, or surrender to Megatron and you know.
But like the whole Ultra Magnus turning himself in and then sending the message and stuff, it's like I kind of feel like Optimus, he's never been dumb, and like it seems like a Optimus that from what I've gathered of lore and all that stuff, it's kind of like I would think if anything he would be like aware of the possibility of a trap, but still have that feeling of like, but it's Ultra Magnus, he wouldn't do this, but be aware like he is in custody of the Decepticons. So it just seems like when he gave his argument for it wasn't like, I know this may be a trap and stuff, but we need to check it out. It was, I have faith in Ultra Magnus, or I just trust him. And it's like that doesn't seem like the type of logic that Optimus would use. And that's why I don't know if they were trying to like do a naive Optimus. That's where I kind of felt like, is that what they're going for? Because that doesn't seem like the logic he would use. I feel like he would, because then you did have the other bots and be like, it's a trap, and he's like, no, it's like no, that it just didn't match up character wise for me.
Well,
and I don't need him to be G1 Optimus either. It's like. He just ended up, to me, coming off as just completely dumb the whole time, and everyone's telling him, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? So which the thing is that I feel like they missed out of that they could have done is if we had more insight where it's like, it seems like the decisions Optimus is making are dumb, but we have like seen a short scene or like a flashback of why it's not, like he has other knowledge of why Megatron is someone we can't trust and why he's bad, and like I don't know, they do this in movies where like everyone doesn't understand why the leader's doing a thing, but he has this extra knowledge that it's like, oh, they don't know this but we do, so you like you have the characters yelling at him, but we're all like, yeah, but instead it's like we're just as in the same boat as a leader where we're like, yeah, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah, it would be more forgiving if the audience was made aware.
Yeah.
But
I think personally I feel like Optimus was more on a religious crusade, and that's why he was just solely focused on this one desperate option and not listening to anyone else. But yeah, he was still making dumb decisions, it seemed like.
Yeah, I mean that was my take too, is that his faith was born out of desperation, and that blinded him to all the obvious issues with his plans there.
Another point I had was that I was a little disappointed that like the Bumblebee's like arc, I kind of wish it wasn't just because the only reason he went with the Autobot side is because magic, what was it? Alpha Trion. Yeah, the Alpha Trion protocols, right? It's like he didn't actually make a choice to be with the Autobots. It's more like seemed like a weak way to get him to be on the Autobot side. I did think that was kind of a novel idea of the characters that didn't have any alliance, and I did feel like Bumblebee was an odd choice to do for that, because he always has such a massive Optimus sidekick. It seemed like it could have picked a different character, but I did enjoy that aspect of it. I thought that was a really neat concept to be like, you have these people who just don't have alliances. And then, to me, that would have been a great opportunity, since you have these characters who don't have alliances. That would have been the perfect opportunity to show us through their eyes why they should choose the Autobot side. Like, tell the story from their point and let them see through explanations and stuff of why to choose Autobots. And that would have been another good way to have the audience understand better who to go with.
Yeah, I mean, I think all your points are valid. I think it's just depends on how everything comes off. I think for us, I think I think the story was very focused on the action and the things that were happening, in just the major story arc with the Allspark and the stopping Megatron from rewriting all the Autobots. And they didn't really go into the backstory as to what the original goals and drives of each side was. And I think part of that also was they were trying to show that the war basically eroded everyone's principles or morals, and you have basically two sides of the same coin at this point. Like you could make the case that both Megatron and Optimus are doing terrible things, and like Optimus's plan to take the Allspark and take it away from Cybertron, that basically dooms the planet in another way. So basically, I think they don't want you to necessarily root for either one, and maybe that was the point.
And like the other thing too is I definitely don't need like a G1 recreation or anything, or like I don't need it to be like a modern version of the things. It's just we do have like characteristics of the characters that you would expect or whatever, personalities and stuff. And I do think they could have done the story they were trying to do. I just think they missed key points to really help me feel a connection to the characters, because that's the other thing I felt was a little lacking. Like I didn't find myself actually really caring about anyone. Like I just didn't think it really got developed. But it's because I know that's one thing people say, like, oh, you just want it to be G1 again, or whatever. And it's like, no, I actually got excited at the thought that maybe they were kind of going along like the comic storyline of like the mines, and maybe even Optimus and Megatron, like, because Optimus was whatever in the mines and Megatron was worker and stuff. Like I thought it was going to be a really neat concept to kind of go along that lines and build it out and change it to whatever story in that way and stuff. But yeah. I don't know. I just who knows if maybe, I mean, I don't know. I felt like the plot was a little weak, but like if the voice acting hadn't been so distracting, that maybe it'd feel a little different, So maybe in the Earthrise, like maybe they can really take the feedback around the voice acting and like direction and clean that up some, and maybe that will help, because then it won't seem so painful for each sentence to come out. So yeah, that's pretty much my take on it. I really want to be excited for the second installment, and I really hope that maybe who knows, maybe that's when we get the flashbacks or the it's just I kind of really feel like I needed that in this first installment to really get a better grasp of what's going on.
All right, and we will just close off this one section with one little thing that I had kind of noticed a lot of people making jokes about from the Siege show. I had a thought about it that, maybe shed a little bit of light. The part of the show when Ultra Magnus walks into Megatron's kind of base and everyone kind of says, "Who is that?" Because he's wearing a cape on his head, and everyone kind of jokes and laughs and says, "How can you not recognize Ultra Magnus? I mean, he's got the big, huge arms and he's just a massive bot. You should be able to recognize him from 50 feet away. It's 500 feet away, I guess, is, easy enough." I got to thinking, there's a lot of mold reuse in this show, So why is it so upsetting for people, or hard for people to imagine that there might be another character on the planet that looks like Ultra Magnus? We even see it in the show with, all the mold reuses for characters like Cog, or
there's a lot of impactors,
a lot of seekers, a lot of, even in the meta bay, there's a lot of Mirages and Hound bodies lying around. There's an awful lot of mold reuses in this show. The big joke is that Ultra Magnus is they don't know who it is because he's got a cape on his head. I think that is a silly joke that people aren't looking at this show close enough. So I just wanted to point that out, that there's possibly, maybe, another character on the planet that looks like Ultra Magnus.
Do you think we'll ever see him?
No. I
don't. Well, I mean, we don't see any reuse of any of the big characters like Optimus, Megatron. Like Soundwave is the only one, and Sound Blaster is described as a failed cloning experiment.
Oh, I did appreciate that. I did think that was fun, that they're like, he's a failed Soundwave clone or whatever.
And that was very clever. But yeah, no, I mean, I just thought a lot of that seemed to be the joke that everyone seemed to be taking away from this, and I didn't see it as that big of a joke. So I just wanted to kind of put my 2 cents out there that perhaps it wasn't supposed to be a joke. Anyway, the last thing for media news this week is that episode 20 of Cyberverse is going to be on Hasbro's YouTube channel on Monday. Big shocker. It's only available for the people in the US as per usual.
It already came out last Monday.
And I don't know why I'm still doing this. That's it for media news.
All right, and we'll move on to convention news.
All right, this week is all about TF Nation. We mentioned the interview I did with David Wallace from TF Nation about the big broadcast. They have announced a couple comic guests. Anna Malkova and Brian Reckley are going to be on the big broadcast, and they're both from the current Transformers series with IDW. And then also the entire schedule is released. So if you head on over to tfnation.com, you can see the schedule there. And it's on a little bit on the Friday the 14th, and then a lot, like everything else, is on the 16th. Or wait, Friday the 14th, and then Saturday the 15th. They've got so many voice actors, it's crazy. But then also Anna Malkova and Brian Reckley, as I mentioned. There's going to be some giveaways if you're on the Twitch chat, watch-alongs with some G1 episodes, some trivia. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to checking it out. You can either be on their Twitch channel or they have a live page on their website. But for the contest and the giveaways, it looks like you have to be in their Twitch chat. So check that out. And they did tell me, like David did tell me, that the interviews and stuff will be live even after the fact. So if you do have to miss it, you can still come back and watch those.
All right, and we will finish up the show with feedback. So we've got a voicemail and an email about War for Cybertron Siege on Netflix. So our voicemail comes from longtime Donatron John 4X Levengood.
Hey guys, John 4X Levengood here again. A little bit of spoiler warnings in this, but I just finished listening to Alt Mode episode 192, and I have a feeling that 193 you guys will get review of episodes 4, 5, and 6 of the War for Cybertron Siege. My thoughts are, I really liked it. I thought it was really good, done well. The story was well good. I think Prime's take on it, some people had an issue with Prime's take, but I think Prime is more of a good leader who's desperate to find a solution for the war. He's losing the war. He knows he's losing the war, and he's desperate to grab onto anything that could help him win the war. And that's my thoughts on how he's played. I liked both Jetfire's and Bumblebee's arcs. I thought they were really good. My only little nitpick is I'd like to see more transforming happening on screen. I mean, these are the Transformers. That's what we come for. To my also thought is that it was complaints against some people that they didn't feel like there was a lot of population on Cybertron. And my thought of this is Cybertron's being oppressed. You're not going to want to be outside unless you absolutely have to be. So I could see and understand why the population may be a little bit sparse in this case. Anyhow, talk to you guys later. Bye.
All right. Thanks, John, for your thoughts. I think it's a good, additional perspective from another fan. So thanks for sending those in.
That actually was a good point, because I remember thinking that too, where I felt like where they did like a few transformations, but then when they mostly did it, they like took the camera away and then would have them either drive or fly away after they transformed, but we didn't get to see it and stuff. And then the one time they had Bumblebee and gang drive in a car when they are cars, it's like they used to load each other up in each other when they were like injured in the cartoon or something. So, it's not like it's that crazy to do something like that. But yeah, that was a good point to bring up. Was it's kind of funny that it's Transformers, but I felt like there was a big lack of transformation happening.
Yeah. And yeah, we talked a little bit about this in our reviews. I think it's just the cost of the animation is what's holding back more transformations, unfortunately. And this is so I forgot that Daryl brought this up earlier, but he mentioned, going back to 2D animation. I actually don't see 2D animation as a step down from CGI. If you can do really high quality 2D animation like anime, you can do a lot of things that, in some ways free you to get to do other things. I mean, I think at this point, since 2D animation is kind of out of style, it's going to be it's more expensive probably to get people to do, hand drawn 2D animation. But I think a lot of things you could do a lot better with custom transformation animations and establishing that in each scene and each scene of your story. So yeah, I would be on board for a 2D animated Transformers.
One thing that I did love though is that it was really neat to be like, that's my toy on my shelf on my screen right now. Like, that to me was it's super cool. I mean, even if it is dorky that they have their little blast ports and stuff, it's like, that's literally my toy that I bought on my shelf walking around the screen, and it's like, that to me is super cool. And one thing I did feel like they missed out, one last thing, was the Battle Masters. I really, kind of wish there had been more of those to just be around and do a thing with, especially if they're trying to sell toys, being a kid watching it, you want me to buy these little guys. I feel like they kind of also miss a little opportunity to have those dudes go into action. But yeah, I did love, I know you could cut down costs possibly or not. I don't actually know, but just the fact that it was my toy on the screen that was really cool. I did appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the only close thing we got there was with Cog when he could transform into RC's weapon pack. Yeah, that was the only real. I mean, and he's not quote unquote the battle master little guys, but yeah, if they had done more of that would have been cool. All right, and last we've got an email from Cedric. So Cedric really wanted to talk to us. He sent us an email, he sent us feedback on the episode post, and he sent us a note on Facebook. So Cedric, we got your message. Thank you for writing in. So Cedric says, okay, guys, first of all, I have zero knowledge of what happens in the comics. I love the cartoon show growing up and the 86 movie. So I have a few small storytelling problems with the show, but overall, I'm loving it. The big thing that got me to seek you guys out and to ask the Transformers experts some questions is this. In the cartoon, when the Autobots transform into vehicles on Cybertron, before they ever knew of Earth, they transformed into vehicles that were indigenous to Cybertron. They did not turn into semi-trucks or any other earthly type vehicles. The Decepticon Seekers were pretty much accurate as they turned into Cybertron type jets. So I'm wondering, how do they know about these vehicles that exist and how do they transform into them? On the first episode of the 80s show, they crash landed on Earth and their computer system scanned the Earth for suitable vehicles for them to disguise themselves into, and it programmed them into their systems while they were all unconscious. This may be a small thing to most, but it is really bugging me. I'm hoping there is some type of comic book explanation for them to be able to do this. Well, other than that, I really enjoy the show a lot, and thank you guys for doing your podcast. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
It's because it's how they made the toys.
Well, and Cedric, you are not wrong to have noticed that. So, I mean, we've talked about this on the show.
We are awesome.
That's not what I was talking about. But thank you for the compliment. But the War for Cybertron toys. I mean, so this goes back to the realities of toy design. All the War for Cybertron toys have been designed so that they could be easily redesigned to be the Earth type vehicles. So we see this in particular with Optimus Prime, with Prowl, with Sideswipe. All these toys, like you look at their quote unquote Cybertronian modes, they're pretty much their Earth modes, just looking slightly different. And that's really the only reason why the characters, the toys or the vehicle modes look the way they do in the show. They are supposed to be Cybertronian, like they're a little bit stylized. You notice with Prime, he has like that other set of things on top of his semi-truck mode that's supposed to be Cybertronian. Every time I say that, I'm making quotes with my fingers. But yeah,
except for Hound. Hound is just a Jeep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in the story, they are not supposed to have been to Earth already. They are not Earth vehicles. Their vehicle shapes just coincidentally look very close to what Earth vehicles eventually become. So that's the only you've got to do a lot of hand waving there. But that is just a result of the reality of their toy designs, that Hasbro basically didn't want to redesign all these characters for their Earth modes for the next series of toys. So all the Cybertronian modes in the Siege toy line are basically pre-Earth vehicles.
They got paint scuffs on them.
Yeah, they made them. They put a lot of like battle damage paint scuffs on them to make them look, very worn. But the Earth vehicles are basically just cosmetic upgrades so that they just look like Earth vehicles, and they don't have to do any complete redesigns of any of the toys. So
it was a disappointment when the toys came out, and I thought you were going to get like all these crazy Cybertron versions of things, but then it's kind of like we made wacky versions of their Earth modes. And it's like what you said. It's just how toy making goes, where they're just trying to save money and be lazy.
Yeah. So if you do want like quote unquote real Cybertronian designs, you have to go back about 10 years and the War for Cybertron video game, where since those video games were not set on Earth, they were all set on Cybertron. Then the toy line that Hasbro came out with back then, all the characters were redesigned to have completely different Cybertronian modes, and that's where you get there's a funky Optimus Prime and a funky Megatron. You've got Soundwave and his tapes. All his tapes are little circles instead of rectangles because they're data discs, I guess. So those designs are very different from their Earth modes. Like the Bumblebee looks really, really like almost like a Tron car. Yeah, but that toy line is 10 years old at this point. So if you look them up on tfu.info or the TF Wiki, you can see how different those designs are.
They didn't have Earth vehicles, but in G1, when they transformed, they had the same robot modes they had when they got to Earth.
Yeah.
So, G1 ain't perfect either.
Yeah, that's true. So hope we answered your question, Cedric, and hope you can forgive the show for a tiny little cheat there. All right, I think that will wrap up this episode of Transmissions Alt Mode. Again, Epyk, tell us where we can find all your stuff online.
You can head on over to epyksuicide.com. That's EPYK suicide.com. And there will be all of my media links.
And thanks, everyone, for listening. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Later.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to this episode of Transmissions. But just because this episode is over doesn't mean the Transformers fun has to stop. Join us and other Transformers fans on our Discord chat server by visiting transmissionspodcast.com/Discord. If you would like to learn more about how you could support the Transmissions Podcast, just visit transmissionspodcast.com/support. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
See, Daryl, you jinxed us.
When he brought up the thing that took all the time.
Yep, I did.